Howdy, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday live stream. Today, we have a great day ahead of us. We've got John Willis coming from the SOE studio for the first time in YouTube history that it's live. And we have Joel Ryals coming to us from Florida, from Fortress K9. How are you two doing today?
Doing great.
Great. Yep, great.
I'm coming from a mysterious, undisclosed location here where I have gone away for 2 days to finish writing the first draft of my Three Things book, and only one person knows where I am right now. So there's been a lot of debate in my network about where I disappeared to, but
That's cool.
You should put it out where they get a free bag of coffee if they guess right.
yeah, well, then I have to admit where my escape hatch is. I've used this escape hatch more than one time.
Oh, yeah. You gotta keep a secret then.
Run
You
the
gotta keep it
contest.
secret.
Run the contest anyways. It'll generate a bunch of traffic and you'll sell coffee.
That's a good point. It was funny when my neighbor Tracy Eversole asked where I was going, and I wouldn't tell her. She's like, "I don't get to know either." I was like, "Nope, nobody gets to know. That's how secrets get out."
It's absolutely how you tell one person. You should actually do that on purpose so you can test and see if you can trust them.
Yeah, people used to give information like they tell one person one thing and another person another thing, and they do that with a couple people they're testing. And then when the information, quote unquote, comes back, they can tell who ratted them out.
Or they've added, or multiple people did, so the story has been woven.
Yep.
Telephone.
Yeah, telephone is a thing, and gossip definitely changes things. I see we've got a lot of really cool people. Bob Lester is in today. Hey, Bob.
Nice.
I haven't talked to you in a long time, man.
Yep, Evan. Bob's on his way to your place, right, Joel?
That's
Yeah,
what I
he'll be here
thought.
this coming week. Yep.
Well, Joel, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about how having difficult experiences sets you up for pushing through to success later in life. Let's go that direction first. And then, guys, if you have questions, put the first couple words in all caps, please, or just put question in all caps, colon, and write your question out, and then I'll know that you want me to see it. Otherwise, I assume you're talking to each other in comments.
Yeah, so I had an interview with Jack, I think last week, and I had sent him some stuff on talking about passion. And one of the things that's always kind of bothered me when people use the word passion is what they mean typically when they say that word is something you really like, right? If they say follow your passion, they're saying follow something that you really love or you really enjoy doing. And the problem that I've always had with that, and while that may have kind of become the use of the word or the definition of the word in later days, is the original use of that word and what it meant was something you were willing to suffer for. So the original use of the word passion, the very first time it was used, was talking about Jesus Christ on the cross, and they called it the passion of the Christ, and it was something that he was willing to suffer for. Now you could say that you need to love it in order to be willing to suffer for it, and that's fine. But there's lots of things that people say they really, really like, and you go, "How much are you willing to suffer for that?" And they're like, "Not really that much." And there's nothing wrong with liking something that you're not willing to suffer for. But if you're going to talk about doing something that's hard, accomplishing something that's hard, pushing through problems and overcoming obstacles and difficulties, all of those things are hard. All of those things require sacrifice. They require you to give up time. They require you to give up money in many situations, either to invest it or to go without for a period of time until you can make something else more profitable. They require you to do a lot of hard work. We're here in Florida and we train outside. I don't have an indoor training area, and we train outside in the heat. We try and use the shade as much as possible. But things like our Thursday tracking days, which is our typical tracking day in the week, we walk 2 miles on average through the swamp in 120-degree heat index weather with the vines and the thorns and everything else. And we come in and we've got little welts all over our bodies from the thorns going through our pants legs and everything else. And it's like, yeah, that was awesome, but it's not something that's easy when you're doing it. When we take new people out there, they're like, "Holy crap!" And I'm like, "Well, you survived. Like, that was an accomplishment. Just surviving and not getting left out there in the swamp was an accomplishment." And so, when you run up against problems and difficulties, the question really becomes, what are you willing to suffer for? So interested in hearing you guys' thoughts on that.
I have never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right. Like, The things that I've done best at and put the most into, I do love them, but they are not necessarily fun all the time. And there's always a trade-off that has to be made in order, like I'll be roasting coffee well into nighttime during high coffee roasting season, which starts about mid-October and goes through the end of the year because people send my coffee as Christmas presents. And most of the orders come in, I would say more than 50% of my revenue is that period of time, October 15th through the end of December. That's the way it's typically been. So I can kind of tell what's going to happen based on how sales have been earlier in the year. But then it's like, okay, man, how am I going to get this done? I'm going to be out there after dark. I'm going to be up there early in the morning if I want to get the orders out. So, and that's not fun, right? That's not necessarily fun, but it's necessary. Otherwise, people don't get their Christmas presents and then they don't buy your coffee for Christmas presents next year. So I can totally see that perspective. I've never thought of it that way. I love it. John, are you hearing us okay? Because you've glitched a little bit.
Yeah, I hear you fine. I see you glitching out, so I don't know if it's probably my feed on this Starlink. I think the question too is, do we convince ourselves to do this thing for the amount of money that we get rewarded for it? And if somebody just gave you $10 million tomorrow and you woke up and had $10 million, Nicole, would you continue to roast coffee? And I think that you probably would in some capacity, but not like you're doing it now. I would expect you would probably go and travel to the destination and build content around coffee, perhaps like making gear. If somebody's like, here's $100 million, I don't know that I wouldn't just refund all my open orders tomorrow and go do something completely different. Would I still have sewing machines and build gear? Absolutely, I would. I was on a sewing machine this afternoon. I was on a sewing machine last night. That's kind of like when I yell at dudes and I'm like, y'all got 24 hours in the day and you watch 6 hours of TV. Yeah, I say shit like that, but I don't watch 6 hours of TV. I consume 6 hours of content at the same time I'm, producing something. So would Bob do paving and asphalt if it $100 million for $10 million? I wouldn't really stop what I'm doing right now, but $100 million, yeah, the answer would probably be different. And I think that'd be Bob Lester as well. $100 million, Bob, like, would you just get rid of the company or would you keep the company? Right. So I think a lot of times we watch our parents grow up and we know kind of what they made. So we pick a job, especially if you went through the public school system, the government school like I did, they give you like this paper and here's your job kind of, and the prestigious is doctor and lawyer. But who really wants to be a doctor and a lawyer? A lot of our doctors and lawyers, they come from Nigeria or India or China, because it's in that culture and they are pushed. You have to be a doctor or lawyer. But does anybody do people become lawyers because they truly man, I just want to be a lawyer? Or do they pick that amount and then they become comfortable with that? I listened to your show. I know exactly what you're talking about, Joel. I listened to it while I was mowing everything over the weekend.
Yeah, well, and the reason I guess I have an issue with it is because a lot of people that are thinking about getting into business, they typically have something they like to do, right? Maybe they're a computer programmer and they're like, I'm really good at computer programming and I realized I could get some contracts with some of these other people and, make it a side hustle and blah, blah, blah. And then they start doing the job and realize, wait a minute, there's all these other things I have to do now too. I don't like those things. And then that's where a lot of the burnout comes from, because they thought, oh, I can't remember the name of the book, but there was a book that talked about, most people who start businesses are really technicians and they don't run a business. And it was kind of this idea of, you need to set up systems and stuff like that in your business. But a lot of people get in because they like the technician part of it. Like I like dog training. A computer programmer might like, coding and stuff like that. But then when you have to, write contracts and follow up and keep schedules and work with clients and all the other kind of stuff that goes into everything, all of a sudden it's like, hey, what's going on here? There's all this stuff I really don't like to do that much. Now I'm going to start getting burnt out and blah, blah, blah. Rather than starting right off the bat saying, hey, I really like this thing. I want to do this more full time, but am I willing to suffer through the parts of it that I'm not necessarily going to like so that I can, make this my full-time job? And then the other aspect of it is, I think a lot of people think I'm going to do this thing I love and I'm going to be successful in the next couple years. or the next 5 years or whatever the case may be. And then it takes them 10 years to get there. And they just weren't willing to put in the time and energy to make it till they actually got to the point where they could have the life that they want. 'Cause, a lot of people hear us talking about living the life that we want. And really, I wake up every morning and I do exactly whatever it is I want to do. Now, there's consequences. If I want to screw around, then, you better make that up some other time. But I'm the one who chooses. Nobody comes and says, all right, this is what you got to do today. It's like, you've got to set it yourself. You've got to make your own schedule, and then you've got to hold yourself to that. But I guess it just bothers me that I know a lot of people get burnt out because I think they have an unrealistic expectation, and they get into it, and then they're like, well, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And then they burn out because they really weren't prepared to suffer for it.
I think a lot of people think that, like, they use the term entrepreneurship, right? And I think to a lot of people that means just, I do bullshit when I want to do it, and money just comes to me. I don't think they believe when you tell them you work 16 hours a day. Like, they can't fathom that,
right,
and put that together. Like, somebody was asking the other day, and I said, what's the no bullshit answer? Like, rather than me telling you, let my wife tell you. And she said exactly the same thing that I would have said. But I think they just have a perception that things are differently. Like, oh, when John's not on the camera, he's probably sitting there on the couch. And that's not at all the case. Like, you have animals, live animals. I don't get to pick on the days when I'm going to feed these things. They don't give a shit whether it's raining or it's lightning. They don't care. They have to still be, taken care of. I tell people, take that thing, because they're like, what? I don't know how to find my passion. Like, that's been that must be out there right now. People are talking about it. There must be big content channels making stuff about that, because I keep hearing it. And I'm like, stop trying to figure that out. Find that thing that you go to a job that you don't like for a little bit of money, and after you pay all your bills and you have that little finite amount of money left over, and then you compile that over weeks to go get a piece for whatever that car or whatever that is. That thing that you spend the last bit of money you have that brings happiness and joy, figure out what that thing is, and then figure out how to monetize that, right? And if you put every dime and every piece of sweat and everything you have into that, 3 years, you don't get anything for 3 years. Everything goes into that business for 3 years. And that's the difference between breaking that $1 million a year and never touching 100,000 a year. Like, people can't fathom that, right? Go, when you have a shop or a garage, sleep on a cot for the next 6 months. Well, I can't do that. I couldn't do it either. Codes and zoning said I couldn't do it, but I lived in the shop for 6 months. I slept on the floor for 90 days, right? You just do, you don't ask permission. You just go do those things, and all that money goes back and back and back and back. And like, I've had those things happen where we were just transferring some money to a buddy, Evan, as a matter of fact. We did the radio deal, and I'm like, hey, we did the initial one through my stuff, and we go to send him money, and I'm like, hey, I can send this to you through PayPal. He's like, cool. I'm like, actually, we should not, because when all that money comes through there, they're going to lock your account up for 90 days. They just locked my account because I had too much money come into my account where I've done business for over a decade, and they froze up at like day 20. They froze all incoming money and held that motherfucker for 30 days. They just released it. I just got hit again. Like, they just you're going to see those things happen. And until you have those scars, until you know to look for that, you don't know. You haven't been as pressure tested is what you were really talking about. Do you have wherewithal? Have you skinned your knees? Do you have scar tissue? And do you know that that's not going to end you, right? What do you do? A lot of people just sit down and be like, man, all I have is $50,000 and I can't access it for 30 days. Like, what do you do? Right. You and I and Nicole can tell people 3 bank accounts, 3, systems to bring in cards with. I mean, not Ari and Hermosi, but Alex Hermosi talks about that. Like, they locked up almost $1 million of his money on some of his initial deal. He never got that money back. It never came back to him.
Oh, luckily that hasn't happened to me. I always get it eventually. But when I did my Kickstarter that you helped me out with so much, John, I got locked for 2 months until I could prove the orders had shipped.
Yep, crazy.
And that was PayPal.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you have a history with PayPal. You have years worth of history with them.
Yeah. And
Yep.
luckily, I also had Stripe connected to that, so I had two sources. So some of the
Yep.
money wasn't locked up. And the whole point was I'm using it to buy the thing that I'm
Yep.
using to fulfill the order. So that's how
Yeah.
Kickstarter works.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And it's always a good idea to have a couple of months. I try to keep at least 3 months of operating costs in the account so that if something like that does happen, you're not in a panic mode. When you first start off and you don't have 3 months worth in there and something gets locked up for 30 days, that can be a pretty big panic moment. I have a PayPal account, but I highly discourage people to use it. And when they do want to use it, I charge them the 3.5%. I just add it into the cost and tell them there's going to be an extra fee. Even WooCommerce. So I just recently got rid of using WooCommerce on my Canine Academy side, which we took a little bit of figuring out on the back end to make sure everything still works properly, because WooCommerce added a new they call it payments, and so that's how you actually connect it to your Stripe account for your credit card processing. And because they did that, you could barely access your Stripe back end, because like technically you still had a Stripe account, but you couldn't actually see any of the stuff coming through the WooCommerce into it. It was very limited in what you could do. There was almost no customer service. And then, I'd been doing business with them for probably 6 to 8 years on this account. And I had one complaint in 6 to 8 years, and they froze my account and said there were these issues. And I just called my web guy up and said, screw it, move everything over to Ecwid and I'll go direct through Stripe from now on.
Yeah, we had the same thing, man. Shopify hounded us for a year to start using them. They put in this payment processing gate. So we switched everything, used Shopify. We had run $3 million through them, and they locked our shit down. And they said it was because we were selling supplements. We were selling pre-workout. We were selling amino acids and stuff. And they locked we immediately removed all that, asked them to review it. And they're like, nope, the bank we're doing business with says no go. So luckily we had Square and Stripe. We were able to toggle and just go seamless, but we weren't sure, when that happened. And like, we were doing like real business through those guys.
Yeah,
they don't care.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like they take the people that, because they're taking a percentage of everything that you sell through them. So they're taking the people that are bringing them in some of the largest, amounts of money and then locking them out. And especially when you have a history with them, that just doesn't make any sense. But it does go back to that mentality of, these are things that you're going to deal with. You want to be the guy who's, writing code or building apps or doing whatever it is that you're doing for your clients, and things start rolling in and you're like, woo, things are actually going great. And then all of a sudden, boom, something happens on the backside of something. And you're like, what the hell? Like, now I got to figure out this whole new thing. And, other than doing live streams, I hate coming in and sitting down at my desk. It's one of the things I despise the most. Like, even when I'm replying to clients and all that kind of stuff, I do 99% of that on my phone, outside under the barn. I stay out in the heat as much as I can all through the day, so I don't get used to the air conditioning and all that kind of stuff. And when you have to stop and come in and sit down and go, where are all these settings again? And where's the stuff I have to figure out? Because it's like, if you do it every day, I could come in and do it in 15 minutes. When you don't do it every day and it's not your normal thing, it's like a 6-hour job, and I get it halfway through it. And then I'm like, all right, web guy, finish that up. Like, I'm done. That's all I'm doing on this backside stuff. But these are all the things that you deal with. Has nothing to do with dog training. Like, what I want to do is be out working with my dogs and replying to clients and, building or repairing obstacles and setting things up. And nope, I'm sitting in front of a computer trying to figure out how to get my payments to go through and make sure that the Canine Academy actually, like, the course actually gets assigned to the person when they get it, and they get their email that gives their login information. Those were all like little quirks. Like, people were still buying Canine Academy, and I start getting emails, hey, I didn't get my login information, so now I got to manually go in, update their password, copy it, and email it to them so they can log in. And I'm like, this should all be automated. What's going on? But it was because we switched things, and I just hadn't fully finished all the little settings on the backside, and we had to get all that done. And it's not fun, but once it's done, it's done. And then until the next little quirk happens, you're at least good for a while.
Yeah, so I'm in a situation right now, Joel, where I decided to make my life easier this year. The thing I hate most to do in my business is prepare my finances for tax preparation, which means I'm paying somebody else to do the tax preparation, but I need to communicate to them what the expense was and why it's a valid expense and categorize all that, right? For everything that comes in and goes out. And in previous years, I have what's referred to as the Uber spreadsheet, where I imported all that stuff into spreadsheets and manually tagged it. And you have to track something going from one account to another account. That's not two expenses, right? It's just moving from one business
Right.
account to another account. All of that takes me days. Takes me days to do that. And when I'm on my game and doing it once a month and having that all reconciled, that's great. But the truth is I don't do that every month. And I always end up with that same situation at tax prep time. So I'm like, I know we should be able to automate this. So I do all of this research on which tool to use, end up going to QuickBooks, even though I've never really liked QuickBooks, and pay somebody to set it up. And then the way they get it set up, you have to manually import everything. Well, my whole thing was I wanted to have it automatically bring the expenses in on the account, like sync with them, right?
Right.
And so then I start getting that set up. So at this point, what I have is double imports of the same expenses.
Yep.
Some accounts not properly working. Still haven't filed my taxes from last year for my business, which are due in like 4 weeks right now,
Same
like
boat.
latest it can be. And I'm pretty sure what I'm about to do is go back to my Uber spreadsheet and spend 2 very long days this weekend going through item by item and getting that prepped just so I can get it to my person who will have my taxes done in like 2 days. Because once it's organized like that, they have their system in place to get it done. And I still haven't saved myself time. And that's the kind of thing you have to be willing to do, I think. Because at the end of the day, I don't need to not, I don't want to file my taxes late. And I don't want to not file my taxes because that's worse.
Yeah. Well, and especially in the beginning, I found that over and over and over and over again was, well, let's try this. Nope, that didn't work. Okay, well, let's try this. Nope, that didn't work. And every time you quote, try something, it's like, a couple weeks worth of work to try and get it set up. And then either you just don't have the technical expertise to make it work, or it's just not the thing for you. And then you just got to go try something else. What we're trying this year, so we'll see at the end of the year for 2023 whether it makes my life easier or not, is that app on the phone called it's by Intuit. I think they just call it Self-Employed. Yeah,
I've tried that app.
And so you sync it to your bank account, and then my wife now, so at least my wife she likes the Fetch app. So you get like these little points when you take pictures of your receipts, which I'm sure they're monetizing that information somehow. But on road trips and things like that, we get Starbucks coffees, which we never get Starbucks. So it's like, hey, we're on the road, swing in and get our Starbucks coffees with our app. And on date nights, we go to Outback and get like $10 off our date. So I'm like, you're already taking a picture of it. Just open the QuickBooks app and snap a picture for the app. So now all of our receipts are digitally kept. And then at the end of the year, supposedly, if you use QuickBooks, or no, if you use TurboTax, because they're all owned by Intuit, it's supposed to import all that data for you. And I'm sure there'll still be a little bit of figuring out. But what I do, because I don't do the quarterly thing, I know, like, I don't have somebody that does that, and I'm just not willing to sit down and do it quarterly. So I just file it all at the end of the year. But it literally, I have to sit down and like lock out a week. And I have, I print out all of my statements from the bank, and I'm highlighting in different colors, different things and all that kind of stuff, and adding it all up and then compiling it. And then inevitably I get to some spot in the taxes and I'm like, damn it, I didn't do that right. And I have to go back and figure some stuff out properly. So hopefully this self-employed thing will help. But yeah, it's this kind of thing over and over and over again in a business. It's like, yeah, I'm going to make my life easier. Nope, that was a month of wasted.
That did not make my life easier at all. And in fact, now I'm like, do I set up a second QuickBooks account, import everything and do that? Or do I go back to the spreadsheet, which I know?
Yeah.
I don't know which one it is. I'll probably try that first option one more time. And then if that doesn't work, I'm doing the spreadsheet on Saturday. That's my big day, Saturday.
Loads of fun.
Yeah. My reward for doing it for like all morning will be like, I get to go swimming in the lake for half an hour and then come back and do it some more.
Oh, yeah. Do you have somebody that does that for you, John, or do you have to do that kind of stuff yourself?
No, I pay somebody to do that.
Yeah. That's where I want to be. That's where I'm trying to get right now.
Bookkeeper, accountant, tax lawyer.
So when you do it, so the reason I've not hired a bookkeeper is and I may just not be understanding how it all works. So, dog food, things like that are easy, right? That's easy expense for maintaining dogs. When it comes to things like, hey, we went out to eat on Friday with all of the trainers in the business. That's a business meeting that we're doing every Friday. We have a itinerary we go through and everything. So my understanding is that should be 100% tax deductible versus like travel meals versus taking a client out to eat for dinner. And do they figure out how to do all that for you, or do I still have to give them all that information?
It depends how much you pay. It depends how much you pay them.
Okay.
I said, I'm going to give you boxes of receipts. And they said, well, if you categorize these, I said, I'm not going to do any of that. You tell me how much I have to pay you to do that, and then I will go make that amount of money.
Got it.
Yeah, and that is a great approach. That's where I want to be, is with a bookkeeper who maybe they occasionally have to ask me something, but they can figure that out. They can figure out that dinner out was catering and not a travel meal or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I have looked for that person a few times, and I eventually will find that person or that outsource. I haven't looked hard. I need to look harder. It's on me. Like, this is not because the universe is conspiring against me to keep me from getting a bookkeeper.
Well, they're very expensive. You just have to decide what your time is worth and how miserable it is for you to do that, right? Are you willing to take a weekend and do nothing but that? Or would you rather just work a few more hours each day and make the money to pay that person? We have this perception when they're like, I'm $120 an hour. You're like, oh, that's a lot of money. Is it? I mean,
right.
Is it?
Yeah, I charge $300 an hour for private lessons.
Yeah.
And that's mostly because I don't want to do them. And so I keep raising the price until people will stop asking me to do it. Even at $300, people are like, okay. I'm like, damn it. I should have said $500.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say by now, when somebody tells me how much they are per hour, I rarely think it's too much. Yeah. Sometimes I think I don't have enough to pay you, but I don't think it's too much.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Because then the next question is, how do I get enough to pay you if I want that person doing the thing?
Yep. Well, at least then you have something to compare to. Like, is it better for me can I make at least that much money an hour doing the work, doing what I want to do, and then pay them to do what they're specialized at? Or can I not make that much money and it's worth me doing that for my own personal rate versus me doing what I do best and them doing what they do best? And like mechanic work, I can work on vehicles if I have to. I have a general basic on how it all works and can replace parts in an engine. But it's going to take me 2 days to do something that I can take it into the shop and have it back in a couple of days and be done and know that they did it right. And if they mess something up, they're going to fix it and it's not going to charge me anything else.
Yep. Evan's saying Expensify is excellent for receipt handling.
Expensify, it is. To check that out.
Yeah, it's an app. You can get the paid version and it's better. I've used it a lot. It also tracks mileage. It does not work for me personally, but it works for most people who are not completely ADHD like I am. And you take pictures as you go and it scans them and brings the information, like it reads the receipt and puts it in there. And then the ones it can't read, it will tell you to put the amount in, and then it automatically categorizes it for you based on your history, which is that's what I was wanting to do with QuickBooks. Is it's like basically the electric bill that comes out of Hollow Roast Coffee is the same stupid account number every time, coming off of a stupid credit card that I pay off every month, and it's coded the same way every month. There's no reason I should have to go in there physically and go.
Well, that is one thing. So it sounds like the Expensify and the self-employed app are pretty similar. So when you very first start self-employed, you have to tell it, anything that's new. And when you first start, everything's new. You have to say, this is this thing, and that's that thing, and this is what this expense is. But then it figures out, every time there's an expense from Animal Supply Company, it will preload the information. This is, dog food. And then you just have to say yes or no. And you can edit it if it's not, but when it's right, which it is 95% of the time, you just swipe it to the side and it adds it into your thing. And so that's probably a pretty they're probably pretty similar. I don't know that when you take the picture. So what it does, what self-employed does, is it syncs up with your bank account. And so I don't know if it actually is taking the receipts and syncing them to a charge, or exactly how that's happening. But every time a new charge comes in on the bank account, it pops up and it basically says, what classification is this in? And so if it's moving from account to account within Bank of America, well, that's not anything. That's just interbank transfer. I'm just moving money from one account to another. But if it's, Walmart, it's almost always some kind of dog training supplies. If it's, Publix, that's, where we go to get our, like kefir and stuff like that we're feeding the dogs and things. So it's like supplements and stuff for the dogs. So it figures out all of these different things, and then it just defaults to them. And then you only have to take time and make an adjustment if it's not one of your normal things.
The easiest solution for it is you just use business cards for business and you use personal cards for personal. But when people start businesses, they're all out of the same pool. That's called commingling funds. And if you ever have an issue, it becomes a large issue and it pierces that corporate veil if you have that. So you just set up like American Express is great for that. If you're running plum cards or something, all the business goes on that. And then all of, that business pays you as a person, pays you whatever you're making. And then all of your personal stuff comes out of that. So you just have them separate.
Yeah. And that then avoids this situation where you have personal and business on one receipt and your bookkeeper hates you. Although if that happens, then you should be filling out your own expense reimbursement form so that it clearly separates the two things.
Well, there's plenty of
the best thing I ever did was have different accounts for business versus personal.
Yep.
There's plenty of accountants that won't do business with you in that manner. They're going to tell you what they want, and the best ones are going to. You're going to have to work within their guidelines.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that is important, and I had to teach my wife how to do this, is, hey, if you're getting beer, run that on this charge, or at least run it on a separate receipt, make it its own purchase, so we can go, okay, we'll take that out of these funds, but I can't deduct it on taxes. And then everything that's actual business expense goes on its own purchase. And so you might go through the checkout and potentially make up to like 3 different purchases in the same, ring through, but you organize stuff in your cart, and then this is all the business stuff, and then everything else is separate.
Yep. Okay, let's take some questions here. Is that the Bat Cave, the Fortress of Solitude, the Amazon? I think, John, that's for you, coming to you from your studio.
Oh, I don't know. It's just where we film the podcast at. It's 100 degrees in the other place I'm normally standing at, so I just figured I'd come out here. It's a little bit cooler.
Yeah, air conditioning is a wonderful invention.
The energy level is very different when I sit down, as you can see. I'm much less animated.
Yes. Well, back to the talk about John sitting on the couch. I had seen John sit on his couch one time, and he does have a sofa. And the one time I saw him sit on his sofa, Neefi had dragged him up to sit on his sofa to talk to him about something. And that's like literally the only time I've seen him sit down there. And I've been around. We
sat down. It was you and I, Neefi, a few other people, and we were having a pretty in-depth conversation at that time.
Yep. So that's how rare it is. That's one time in like 3 or 4 years since I've known you. So, Joel, packing gear to come see you. What's the most overlooked thing for new dog handlers, gear and skill?
Well, I would say just a couple things to make sure you have if you're coming down here and training with us. We train outside, rain or shine. Sometimes I'll have clients go, there's too much lightning. I feel like I need to be done training. And I'm like, all right, bye. But like, I don't care how much lightning there is or anything else. We're out training. So I recommend if you don't like being at least completely drenched, bringing some kind of rain gear. I just wear my hat so it's not all in my eyes and keep going. And when we're finished, I'll come change clothes if I'm too soaked. The other one is make sure you have plenty of water. We do have a fridge that you can put some stuff in, but like a little cooler of some kind and some drinks because you're going to sweat. And if you get behind keeping yourself hydrated, it's hard to catch up. So like I, on average, will go through 10 to 12 16-ounce drinks in a day while I'm out training. And sometimes more than that. So don't like cut yourself short on your hydration. A lot of people want to wear shorts. You can wear shorts if you want to, but the thing about the tropics is it's hot and there are insects. And so if you want to fight off the no-see-ums and the mosquitoes and the horseflies and wear shorts, go for it. But I recommend some kind of a durable but lightweight pants. So I like things like BDUs, or I wear the 24/7, the True Spec pants. I wear Victos pants. They're kind of a lightweight BDU type of a pant, or something like Joel Ryals. All of those are pretty good types of pants to wear outside, and good shoes. When dogs step on your feet when you're handling them. And if you have thin tennis shoes on, that can be not comfortable. So I like wearing, at least a lightweight boot while you're training. And everything for your dog, if you're not bringing your own dog, if you bring your own dog, I expect you to bring your own gear. But if you're getting a dog from us, all the essential gear that you need for training comes with your dog. And then while you're staying here, we'll loan you a crate and stuff like that, so that when you take your dog back in the evenings, you have a place for them to stay at night. So we try and make it as easy as possible.
And with pants
Everything
on-
you just recommended also stands for events at the SOE compound that are outside.
Yep.
Because
Everything.
with pants legs on, you can spray off on you. You're in Tennessee. Everything wants to bite you, sting you, or lay eggs in you.
Yeah.
Yes. And it will either be hot or not hot, and you will not know, and it will do both of those things in the same day. Here.
It will, yeah.
Well, we have bug spray available, but people don't. They just don't recognize. Like, you guys get hot there in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Florida is hot and so humid that you sweat, but there's no cooling effect. And so you spray on bug spray onto your legs or whatever, and within a few minutes it's all gone because you sweated so much that it ran down into your socks and shoes. And now you're trying to reapply. For some reason, I don't have any problems with my arms being bit by the bugs. It's always if I wear shorts outside. And certain places, like our training area that we have the obstacle set up, because people walk there so much, there's very little grass. For some reason, they like that area, so they're more heavily in that area. It doesn't seem to bother the dogs, and it doesn't seem to bother people who have pants on. But anybody who wears shorts is like, I'm getting attacked. So we at least try and let people know. And for women, don't wear leggings. Leggings are like not having any pants on at all in terms of the bugs. So, wear like normal, real pants of some kind.
I'm just
like
reminded of that meme that was out with the lady in skin-colored tight leggings that make her look like she's naked at the grocery store.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen that one.
It's like Velcro for anything that sticks to you, any seed pods or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Permethrin's your friend on your clothes as well.
Yep. We had a woman come one time and try and go tracking with us wearing those. And I was like, hey, make sure you have something good on your legs because, we're pushing through vines and thorns and everything. So she shows up in leggings. And I'm like, I don't think that was a very good idea. And she didn't make it the whole way. She was basically like, I quit. And I'm like, well, push your way through those bushes right there. There's a fence you have to climb. And then you'll be in the field and you can walk back up to the training area. But, and people get upset a little bit sometimes. They're like, you're going to leave me out here? I'm like, yes. I told you what it was like before you got here. It's hard, and I'm not quitting. So go in that direction. Open your map app up on your phone. I'll show you where the field is. Get to that.
Yeah. And that's why you're a good dog trainer.
Yeah, you can't feel sorry for the dogs. And because you don't feel sorry for the dogs, you don't feel sorry for the people either. And I tell people, your dogs aren't humans. They don't have human emotion. I wouldn't say that they don't have any emotion, but they don't have the same emotion that humans do. And if you feel sorry for them, you end up letting them get away with things, and then they frustrate you, and then you get mad at them, and that's worse. If you are just very matter of fact about everything, do this, good job, or do this, phooey that, I said do this. And those are the only two options. It's like they either do it or they don't do it. If they do it, they get a praise. If they don't do it, they get a correction. And it's as simple as that. And getting people over their emotions is one of the hardest ways to get them to it's one of the hardest things to get them over when they're handling their dogs. As soon as they realize it, they're like, oh, it's really that simple. I'm like, yes, it's really that simple. Simple doesn't always mean easy, but it's very, very simple.
Yeah, the speed of correction is the thing I've always had to work on. I have to
Yep.
realize the dog did something wrong and I need to do something. And that takes me more time than it should.
Yeah, and timing, there is some importance to timing when you're working with the dogs, but some people will feel like, oh, I didn't get it the second it happened, I can't correct. And I'm like, no. Like, they know. Like, if they do something they're not supposed to, and you're like, hey, cut it out, they're like, oh, damn, I shouldn't have done that. And then
Yep.
you can correct them. Like, our dogs, sometimes when we're doing downstays, they'll get out of position, right? And either somebody will call their dog, and your dog who was not being called decides, oh, that dog's going, I'm going to run with that dog, and they break position or whatever, causes them to come out of position. And the one thing you don't ever want to do is call your dog to you and then correct them for coming. It's like,
Right.
I tell people, if you called your dog to you, you just lost that fight. Just chalk it up. I lost. You won. Well played. All right, now let's come over and start over again. But what I do is I walk after my dogs, and I walk after them at just a reasonable walking pace. I don't run. I don't chase them. Like, they will be like, oh shit, here he comes. I did something I wasn't supposed to. And they'll sometimes avoid a little bit. They learn pretty quick though. The longer I avoid, the worse it is for me. So I'm just going to kind of like lay down here and wait for them to come. And then if I can, I step on the lead. If they're trying to get away, I pick it up, fooey that with a verbal and a physical correction, take them right back to where they were, put them back, and you start the drill over again. And when you are consistent and disciplined and you just follow those simple rules, it makes a lot of sense to the dogs. But we overcomplicate it way too often. And dogs don't have the rationality that we have to understand complexity in those ways. You just have to break it down super simple for them.
Yep. My mountain cur takes it hard when I'm mad at her.
Yeah.
That's the thing. She'll be like, oops, oh no. And she's like, her whole body deflates, which is a new thing. I'm actually glad I get that from her now, because for a while it was like, what? This is fun. What are you talking about? Joel, do you train dogs with weights for carrying extra gear?
So if you're thinking like hiking and wearing a vest and stuff like that, I do a little bit of that. I used to do more of it for my personal dogs when we were hiking and camping a lot more with them. If you want to do that, get a good dog vest. There are a lot of really crappy ones out there that if there's any weight difference on the sides at all, they just kind of slide and the heavy weight's underneath the dog's body. So you want to get a really good vest. Make sure your weight is balanced as best as possible. And what I do is I just started wearing the vest with no weight in it at all. And because there's, it kind of feels different. It may like inhibit a little bit of their movement depending on how tight up under their arms the straps are and things like that. And then let them get used to that and then start slowly adding your weight. Just like, if you're going to teach a kid to hike with you, you don't go, here's 35 pounds, kid, good luck, keep up. You let them wear their backpack with like a change of underwear in it, maybe a water bottle, right? And you're like, all right, just carry this. That's all you got to carry. And then once they can carry that for a little while, you build your distance up, and then you add a little bit more weight and a little bit more weight until they can carry all their own stuff. And but really, the only things the dog needs is water and dog food. And if you're carrying much more than that for your dog, you may throw a few extra things in a first aid kit if they get injured. But other than that, there's not a lot that your dog needs extra.
You mean they don't need parkas and boots?
I don't. Now, there are some situations where boots may be good for the dogs. Like if I was going to hike in Arizona in the desert where the ground is the sand or whatever can get really, really hot, I might put boots on them there. If I was going to be in a place where there's really sharp shale or things like that and the dog isn't acclimated to moving in that environment, I might do some boots there. Like when we train service dogs, which I don't do very often because it throws my whole training schedule off. But if it's somebody who moves very slowly and we're in Florida and on black asphalt, we train those dogs to wear boots because the person can't move quickly from one place to another. But when I move with my dogs in the asphalt, I go from island to island, or I'll move over to where the cars are providing a little bit of shade and we'll walk along that edge. So the dog's, constantly on the shaded asphalt until we get inside. So it's not that you can't use boots, but it's kind of like limited, usefulness depending on where you're at in the environment.
Yeah,
but if they're wearing boots, if I'm hiking with a dog with boots, they're wearing them all the time. I'm putting them on and I'm not taking them off, and they need to be good with just keeping them on.
Well, Joel, when you first reached out to me about this show, and guys, I know I have about 4 questions started, so I'll work those in over time. You did mention the similarity between your story and John's story in building your life. Can you share a little bit about your story? And the thing I wonder is, how much do you think that has influenced your capacity to build the business you're building now?
So the basic backstory, I'll kind of summarize it, was I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago now. My ex-wife, we were separated, but we were still trying to, we actually bought a piece of property in Florida that had 2 houses on it, because we're trying to like work it out where the kids could still see both of us. And, but I was hardly there at all. And I was up in Mississippi training a law enforcement agency to integrate a canine into a SWAT team. And so we're up there doing that. And right before we leave, I get a call from the sheriff. And he basically says, hey, your wife called and said you were building a bomb to try and hurt people, and there's a warrant for your arrest. And so that ultimately was 3 months in jail. We had to like explain to the judge that explosive scent is not an explosive. It's not a bomb, right? It's not a destructive device. A destructive device has to go boom. And one component of a destructive device doesn't make something that can go boom. And, because these people, they just don't know, right? They're like, well, you had firecrackers too. It's like firecrackers and C4 don't go together. Like you can't make those two things go boom. It doesn't work that way. And so ultimately I was able to get out on bail, and I just started the business right off the bat. Like I didn't know if the state charges were going to get dropped. I knew that I'd been told like, hey, the federal government's looking at this one thing, because I had an MP5 that had been given to me, and I didn't register it because I didn't know that you could register it without buying it in a gun store. So I just put it in my safe. I was like, hey, that was pretty cool. This guy gave me this cool gun that I'd always wanted, and so it was just in a safe. So when they did the search warrant, they found that, and they ended up dropping all the state charges, and then I had to plead guilty to the possession of an unregistered firearm. Thankfully, the judge was like, did he steal it? And they were like, no, there's no evidence he stole it. And he's like, well, was he going to hurt anybody with it? And they're like, no. And he's like, so he just had it. And the prosecutor was like, yeah, he just had it. So the judge gave me probation, but I had about 4 months from the time I got bail till the time that I got that sentence. So we didn't know when that sentence came up, is it going to be 10 years in prison or probation? Like we didn't know. And it could be anything in between that. Right. And so when all that happened, I was just like, as soon as I got out on bail, I wasn't able to go home because, my wife was a witness in the whole trial thing. So I couldn't go over there because then I'd be interfering with a witness and all that kind of stuff. So my mom was local down here. So I stayed with her for 3 months and basically just started running dog classes to start, because I'd lost everything in the business, all the dogs, everything. The judge gave possession of those to her. The family court judge did, because of course there was, divorce papers the minute I showed up in jail. And so I got there and I just said, well, first of all, in 3 months, it's easy to gloss over certain things when you're going through stuff like this and say, yeah, I got out of jail and just started the business again. In those 3 months, there was definitely a lot of like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to try and build the dog business back up again? Am I just going to, kind of give up and get a job as a truck driver or something like that? One of these jobs that you can get as a felon, what kind of things am I going to try and do? And, but by the time I came out of that, I was like, nope, this is what I'm going to do. Like, no matter what happens, I'm a dog trainer. This is what I do. Like John said, you can give me $100 million and I might change the way I do it a little bit. But I would still be working with the dogs very similar to how I'm doing now. I might not sell them anymore. I might just have them and do a bunch of fun, cool stuff with them, buy a helicopter and do some fast roping, and maybe build a runway and jump out of airplanes with them and some of the fun, cooler stuff. But we basically, I just started building it back up, and then it's, from the point that we really kicked that off till now, it's been about 5 years. If I have my time frames right, and I'm not good about keeping those, so maybe plus or minus a year, and we're doing more business now than we've ever done, than I had done previously with my ex-wife or any of that kind of stuff. So all of that has gone really, really well, And then to come back around to how does that impact what I've been able to do now? I'm sure it's made a big difference. One of the things that really helped, and I was talking to Jack about this a little bit in the last interview too, we often present the building a business from one of the two extremes, either burning the bridges and all the boats and just jumping into it full time, or building the side hustle and kind of slowly building it up. And I did kind of a hybrid between those two, where I started the side hustle when I was still active duty Army. And so I got used to building my client base, and then we would move. And then I'd build my client base, and then I'd deploy. And then I'd build a client base, and then I'd move again. And that happened probably 6 or 8 times from the time I started really focusing on doing the business till the time I got off active duty. And so that really helped, knowing how to build a client base fairly quickly and going and using all the tools available. Like I don't do anything with Craigslist now, but Craigslist was a great tool for me to get clients initially when I had no other name recognition, nothing else out there. Right. And we'd mentioned before, I think, selling puppies on Craigslist and stuff like that. You can't sell puppies on Craigslist. No, you can't sell puppies on Craigslist. I sold a lot of puppies on Craigslist. I made a lot of money doing it. I don't do it anymore because I don't need to. But there's always a way to use these tools to do the things that you want to do. And so I learned a lot of that in those kind of resets over and over again, which I think was really helpful. Because it was like starting over and over again, but with an income, right? I was in the Army, so I wasn't like, I'm going to starve if I don't do this. So I just got to practice it. And, but I think what really the biggest benefit I had from that was one of the reasons we don't kind of take the last step that really launches us into what we're doing in a way that lets us just explode it, right? Because once you can dedicate 100% of your energy to something, you can make it grow so much faster than even when you're giving 80% of your energy, but you're still trying to work another job or you're still trying to do all this other stuff, because it just takes so much energy out of you to go to an 8-hour job, which is really 10 hours because you have to get ready and go to work and get home. And then when you can take all that extra time that you had, get the rest that you need, but also put all that extra time into the work that you're doing, you can just really explode what you're doing there, right? But what I really learned was most people never take that final step because they're afraid that I might lose what it is I do have, right? And they always, of course, take it to the extreme. Well, if I lose my job and this doesn't work, then we're going to lose the house. We're going to lose all the cars. We're going to end up under an overpass, homeless, and the kids are going to, be in foster care. So they have the most extreme possible scenario in their heads. And what happened when I got arrested in Mississippi was within about a 2-week period, I lost everything. And so it was like, well, nothing to be afraid of anymore. It's gone. Like I didn't choose it, but it just happened. And so now when I consider the possibility of, oh no, I might lose something, I'm like, I just do it again, I guess, because I've already gone through that. So the fear of having it happen just really there's no more fear in that scenario because I've gone through it and I made it out the other side. And I legitimately had that concern myself. We had I just quit my final job because I did the hybrid process. So I was active duty Army, and then I went to another job, which basically was active duty Army. It was AGR, they call it. So you're still full time, and I was an officer. So it was like way too much work. So I said, you know what I want to do? Security guard, 8 hours a day. I'm only making $15 an hour, but I'm already making enough in the business so that two of these things combined take care of us just the way we were doing before. And then I had just quit that when my wife separated from me before. So I'd taken the jump, but I hadn't really had the time to really test it. And then when everything was ripped apart and I just built it back up, I had no other job the second time around. I had no part-time job or anything else. So I had to make the business work fast. And I just poured all my time and energy into it. And here we are. And, I tell people I can't guarantee it'll work, but I can guarantee that if you're not pouring all your time and energy into it, it won't work.
Yeah. It's something that struck me about John the first time I met him in person, and I'm sure he does not remember this conversation, but COVID shutdowns we were either in the middle of them, John, or they were lifted, but other places hadn't lifted them. Everything was jacked up. And he started talking about like, if shipping stops being an option for me, my primary source for SOE is shipping out this gear. And if I can't ship it out, that's it. So
Right.
my plan is, and he had an entire backup plan for what they were going to do that revolved around producing your food there on the compound. And I think that is a resilience mindset. And
Yeah.
I think that develops when you lose everything. I think it develops faster and further. He was like 90 miles ahead of everybody else at
Yeah.
that point.
Well, if shipping stopped, if interstate commerce stopped, there's nobody coming to your door. The tax collector's not coming. You are operating under a different set of laws and rules.
Yep.
And those rules are very, very different, right? So we're also probably not trading in dollars at that point either. So yeah, I did have 10 other things that all kind of, went in on those, but they were also things that would make us more resilient in the future. And if for any event, anything that happened, I could still employ my guys. Like if things like that came to be, those guys probably would move here to the compound. We would have more able-bodied people here, and we would be working outside, because you're not far from the power going off when that happens as well, if that were to happen. So,
Yep.
Wood cutting, food production, egg production, just whatever we had to do anyways, we would just have more people to help do that. So that was the plan. That still is. It's always been the plan. And then we can just build content around all of that also.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the important thing there is he's setting it up in a way that benefits him now.
Yeah.
And starting your business over, you're unencumbered by all the other bullshit. All the stuff that's around you. When somebody comes in and burns all your shit to the ground, all that shit's not in your way anymore, right? You're not paying storage for stuff that you don't really care about. You're not maintaining another property, that's gone. You can move so much faster.
Yeah. Well, one of the funny things was, okay, so I lost everything, right? But I knew what I had. I knew the stuff that I had that I would kind of like to get back. It started off with the dogs. And so I needed to get dogs back so that I could, number one, build my breeding program, but also have dogs to sell. So we started that with just, hey, send me these 3 dogs. When I sell them, I will give you 50% of the money. And so it started like that. And then I would say, okay, well, I sold this dog. I told her I'd give her 50%. I'm going to give her 100%, but I'm keeping this dog. So I don't owe her for that dog. So this money I gave you covers these 2 dogs. Now this one's mine. I can keep it for the breeding program. And I built that part back up that way. But there was a lot of stuff that I did want, but there was also a lot of stuff I had that I'm like, I don't need that. That's not that important. And so I kind of looked at it because my now wife, Wendy, which you guys both know, she would kind of get frustrated. She's like, why are you spending so much money getting your stuff back? I'm like, this is how I'm taking care of my kids, right? I'm putting money into the house that gets the kids the things that they need, and I get some of my stuff back, but it's only the stuff I want. And I already know what condition it's in, and I already know whether, it's worth paying full price for, or no. I know that had a tear in it. So I'll pay you this much for it, but if you want to charge me full price, I'm just going to go buy another one. And so I was able to get just the things that I actually wanted and were useful to me back, and not end up with all this crap that I didn't need. And so, it's one thing if it's all burnt and gone completely. But in this sense, I was able to kind of help the family, specifically my kids out. And because one of the big things that was like a motivator for me was my oldest daughter was getting 20% of everything that she sold. So she was putting a lot of stuff up on Craigslist or whatever to sell. But I'd let her know, hey, whenever you get ready to sell something, let me know first. And if I want it, then you don't have to go try and find somebody to buy it. I'll just get it. And if I'm like, no, thanks, go ahead and sell it, then you can do all the work of having people come out and look at it and all that kind of stuff. And so she was able to actually save up enough money to get her first car and all that kind of stuff by, mostly the stuff that I bought back from them. And I just looked at it like I'm getting what I want, and I already know the condition that it's in. Some of it wasn't even available anymore. The company stopped making the specific thing that I had. And so, but you're right, there wasn't all that extra stuff that you had to be like, well, where am I going to put this, or where am I going to keep it? And then, so you got that, you got your actual physical things, but then you also have all the emotional baggage that largely gets ripped away at the same time too. so that, well, what am I going to do if, well, it already happened. So don't worry about it. Just go do your thing that you were going to do anyway.
It's amazing how quickly we can figure out how to take care of ourselves when things go bad. It's like you're suddenly willing to work at the convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
That job you said you'd never take.
Yeah. Did you have something you were going to jump in there with, John?
No, go ahead.
That was something that struck me. It was funny when I first heard Jack mention Joel Salatin's name. I was like, hey, I know that guy, because I'd been listening to him for years in these entrepreneurial workshops and things like that. And one of the things he would often say there was, he was like, it's amazing how easy it is to find a job when you're willing to do anything. And because a lot of the entrepreneurial workshops are gauged around, well, how do you get the money to get the thing that you need to do the business, right? So it was, he would talk about things like getting a tractor. He's like, all right, you need a tractor. Okay, so how about this as a method? You got $50 or $100. Go buy a push lawnmower and go start mowing lawns, and then save up the money from those lawns and buy a riding lawnmower. Now you can mow more lawns faster and save up more money until you can get your tractor. And then you can either keep your mowers or you can sell those off, and now you have the tractor that you need to do this job. And he mentioned when they were building their farm that there were times that he literally had to go work in the convenience store or the grocery store. And he was like, it's amazing how easy it is to find a job when you're willing to do anything. And he was like, we didn't need a lot, but sometimes you needed toilet paper. And sometimes we didn't have the money for toilet paper unless I went and got a job. We had plenty of food to eat, but things like toilet paper and gas and stuff like that, you can't produce all that yourself on a farm necessarily. And that always stuck with me, is that when you're willing to do anything to make the money that you need, then it's really easy to find a job, as long as you're not being overly picky about it.
Facebook user, you have an emotional attachment to things that you don't care about. Put them in the front yard and light them on fire. Put them in a dumpster. Abandon them. Just leave it. We left over half of our shit in California. I left a Zodiac and a Vaughn dive, platform boats, rigid inflatables. I left, I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars of dive gear. I haven't dove once since I've been here. Like, just do what you have to do. I mean, it's why storage units make so much money, because people have an emotional attachment to shit that they don't ever want to see again. Take the things you need for the life that you perceive that you're going to live, and just leave the rest of it, if that's really what you want to do. We make excuses out of emotion. I moved here with all kinds of shit. I have a whole nother building full of shit we moved here with 18 years ago that we've never put eyes on. We literally haven't unpacked any of that stuff.
Yep. Yeah,
and we all do it.
We do. And there's a very real sense that I'm going to be, my life is somehow going to be less if I don't have this stuff anymore. And so I get it. Like, I felt that same draw myself, but in reality, it's like emotional baggage, right? For some reason, we hang on to it, even though we'd be better off if we would just let it go. And if you cut sling load, as we say in the military, that's when a helicopter picks something up. It's a sling load under the helicopter, and they bring it to wherever they're going to bring it, and then they cut sling load and it drops it to the ground, right? And if you cut sling load with all that stuff, all of a sudden you're going to feel like $1 million. You're light as a feather. I don't know if you've ever carried a backpack, a heavy one, all day long, and at the very end of the day, you take it off, and you feel like when you take a step, you're just bouncing. Like, you feel like you're just hopping around everywhere because there's no extra weight on you. That's what it feels like when you drop that stuff. It's the initial decision, and actually doing it is hard. I don't know that I'd light it on fire. I'd at least check with the fire marshal first to make sure you're not going to, get arrested for it. But something along those lines, like just saying, I don't want it anymore, I'm done, and walking away from it, it's a huge load off.
And the alternative suggestion is to just leave it and have an auctioneer come in and hold an auction at your house and just take the things you want to have in your camper.
Yep.
And I mean, then that lets you let go of the money thing. You're going to get less money than you thought your shit was worth, but your shit really wasn't worth what you thought it was worth to begin with. I've discovered the glory of the auction house in our area. Because I always keep trying to sell stuff on Facebook, which is a miserable experience, and I'm basically never doing it again. I just bring it to the auction house, and if it's not good enough for that, it goes to the dumpster, or it goes to Goodwill if it's good enough for Goodwill.
Yep.
We think our stuff's worth way more than it's worth.
Yeah. And putting stuff up by the front road and just letting other people come and take it, that works pretty well too in a lot of cases. You might have to do it a little bit at a time instead of like a whole 40-foot Connex worth. But yeah, just letting go of it will make your life so much easier. And a good rule of thumb is if you haven't touched it in 6 months, you probably don't need it.
Yeah. It's really healthy for me to go on these trips I go on different places. And I usually stay somewhere that has a kitchen because my weak spot is all the crap in my kitchen for processing food that I think I need. I'll be staying somewhere with like 2 forks, 2 plates, and a couple of pans and have to figure out because I prefer to cook my own food. It's just a weird thing about me. Figure out how to do all sorts of stuff without the specialty items I use at home. And then I go home and I'm like, why do I still have the KitchenAid? I don't actually use the KitchenAid. You know why? Because I don't eat carbs anymore. And you know what I use that for? To bake bread and to make things like that. The only reason I still have it right now is my people who run my workshop at my place, when they cook, they use it. And so I don't even store it at my house anymore. I store it on a shelf with the workshop stuff. And it's on probation right now.
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing what we can do without. And like if you use something every day, then great. Like keep it,
Put that in your camper.
Yeah, put it in the camper. But if you haven't used something, especially in 6 months, but even sometimes, like 30 days or 6 weeks, do you really need it? Like, what are you doing holding on to that thing?
Okay, I still have these 4 questions that are very dog specific, but I want to bring up the elephant in the room. John, how are you changing your life as a result of the rumors that there's going to be shutdowns again this fall for a pandemic 2.0 theater situation?
So I'm not changing my life.
I
Joel,
love it.
how are you changing your life?
Well, we didn't do anything different the first time around. Florida had, lockdowns. I can't remember exactly how long they lasted because I didn't participate in any of that stuff. We still ran our public classes here. We were outside. We're always outside doing training. I would tell my clients, if you want to put a mask on, go for it, but I'm not going to. If you want to social distance, go for it. We'll respect you if you don't want people within a certain distance of you. Nobody cared. Like there's a lot of drills we do. We call controlled chaos drills where we're all in tight quarters and we're moving dogs and every person's having to control their dog in the kind of chaotic situation. And everybody was right in there. We had COVID or something, flu, whatever it was during that time, because now somebody gets the flu and they say, I got COVID. And I'm like, whatever, like you got something, a cold. But we had something like that go through a couple times. We'd all go and then we get over it and we'd move on with our lives. So that's basically what we did. I don't really ship things. So if people want to get a dog or a puppy from us, they either hire a transporter or they come and pick it up. And so the only thing that I did the first time around was I did have my wife buy, hey, get like 6 weeks of everything that we need and then kind of keep it up because we would have periodic shortages. Like they'd have a bunch of stuff in of this one thing, but they'd be missing this other thing. And then the thing that we got last time and stocked up on isn't there now, but this other thing that we didn't get last time was there. So I had her keep about 6 weeks of stuff on hand, but still do like a weekly or every other week kind of a shopping trip to check and see what was in stock. If I don't think people are going to let another big supply chain shortage happen like they did last time. At least not in the southern states and probably most of the Central American states, not Central America, but like, Middle America.
Middle America?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to let that happen again. If they did, I probably wouldn't be that surprised, but I think most people are kind of over that crap at this point. You're probably looking at your East and West Coast and Northeast areas doing that if anybody does it. And even if they try to do it in those areas, I'd be surprised if it's anything like it was the last time around. But we'll see. And so I like to have 6 months or 6 weeks to 2 months worth of stuff on hand anyway. Even of our perishables, although some of that's a little hard to keep a full 2 months on. Like our half and half, we go through a shit ton of half and half. So we're always trying to stock up on that. But we keep as much of that on hand as we can. And we've just been taking this slow and steady approach to trying to become slightly more self-sufficient. So like we've been hatching eggs the last couple weeks. One of our chickens went broody, and then we brought, when she got like 3 eggs. I was watching John's thing the other day, and I'm like, damn it, I should have been doing that. We were doing it the opposite. You're taking the chicks away from her and putting them in a brooder. We took, after she had like 3 or 4 chicks, she left the eggs. So we brought all the eggs in and put them in an incubator, and we had about 4 more hatch out. Cool. And yeah, so that worked out pretty good. And but then we put 2 of them in, and she ignored them, and they died. And so now we're like, okay, so we set up an actual little brooding station for them in the chicken coop, and so they seem to be doing pretty good there. But we're hatching more. We put more in the incubator to start just a fresh set in the incubator so that we can have eggs. I don't know that we'll have quite enough eggs to feed 35 dogs every day with them, but at least it's a good supplement, and it cuts down on your need for food if you end up there. We try and keep 3 months or so supply of dog food on hand, but we order every couple weeks fresh food, and we just cycle through it so that the oldest stuff's getting used up first. But these are things that we were doing anyway beforehand, because the supply chain still hasn't fully worked its way out. Like sometimes we go to order dog food, and we get a Friday's our delivery day. We'll get a call on Thursday. Yeah, it's not going to be available till next week. Or, hey, the 50-pound bags aren't available. Do you want 40-pound bags instead? Yeah, add another 5 bags and we'll do the 40-pound bags, kind of a thing. And so we've been doing that anyway, and I don't think that any more change. I think if you're 3 months self-sufficient or close to it, you're probably as good as you can get without kind of going overboard.
So a couple things. Are you when you give them eggs, are you putting eggs over kibble? Is that how you're giving them to them? Yeah,
kibble is raw is great if you have a supply of it. Like if I had as many, well, what do you have? Like 4 dogs? So yeah. 4 dogs and some decent rabbit hutches and things like that. Yeah, you could feed all those dogs. I would go through at between 15 and 20 chickens a day if I fed chicken to my dogs. Because if you do full chickens, you typically do a half a chicken a day per dog. So either you throw them a full chicken every other day, or you freeze them and cut them in half and feed them that way. And so I just don't have a supply for that, right? So I do kibble. We like Victor brand. It's served us pretty well. And then I take the eggs and I crack them, and then I take the shell and crush it and kind of tear it because it's got that little membrane. So I kind of tear it and it just crumbles into pieces, and then we mix it all into their dog food.
Yeah, I'll put a bowl with a scoop of kibble, put 10 eggs on top, and I have a spackling trowel, and I just chop up the eggs, and they do the exact same thing when I'm not giving them rabbits or chickens. So lockdowns are coming back, guys. This is what everybody, this might not be on your radar yet or not. TSA employees are wearing masks yesterday and today. It's already happening. In a week or 2, anybody traveling is going to be required to also wear a mask on the airlines. It's happening, whether you think this is nonsense or not. This is taking place. You have lists of places right now, businesses that are starting to do social distancing again. It's happening in colleges today, right now, around the United States. Not every college. Tim Pool's got a list of them. Andy Frisella's got a list of them. There's tons of content on social, and you'll see it if you go to YouTube right now, just because of this conversation here. It is happening. They've already got a booster. It's ready to roll out. They've already produced it. You've got Biden on television yesterday telling everybody to take their boosters. They just war gamed this out. They did a program called Event 201 in 2018, and exactly what they did in this war gaming situation, this scenario, is exactly what they did in 2019. They just did another one of these, and the disease is supposed to target children, younger children. What they're going to do is catalog and identify you, and they're going to turn part of the population against the other part. You saw Trudeau, and you saw a bunch of your liberal media saying, what are we going to do with these people? Should we put them in camps? Are they there? It's going to go from you're killing grandma to children this time, and they're going to be a huge division. You don't have to believe what I'm telling you. You don't even have to believe that it's happening. I am telling you that it is happening right now. And the biggest part of this war game that they did was how to control social media. Yesterday, YouTube released a whole new set of guidelines. You're not going to be able to even talk about alternatives. You're not going to be able to question if you say anything that goes against World Health Organization, not the CDC, World Health Organization. They're going to pull your channels down. It'll be very short-lived that I am even here. We've got Rumble. We've got all kinds of other platforms. We're all over the place. Jack got a strike last week. I got a strike last week. See, several people that we do business with, simultaneously, we all got strikes last week. And we didn't do a live altogether. It had nothing to do with that. It is happening. And you are hearing about this. I am telling you this because I have heard and seen all these things on YouTube. They're going to wipe YouTube of any of these conversations. So people are lazy. Constantly, everybody's like, oh, you got to get on this app. You got to get on this app. We're on all of those apps. You guys don't use those apps. You don't interact with them. Every time I do a video that's here on YouTube, it automatically populates over to Rumble. They're trying to ban that also. They want to so that you can't put any click-through links to other platforms on here anymore. And they want to censor your ability to send people off platform. So just be aware that that's happening. We do a podcast. It's behind a paywall. We uploaded. We never published it. We uploaded podcast episode 35 last week. And before it was even made public, they removed it from the platform. Now that's behind a $10 paywall. You can't even see my podcast without being a $10 member. They eventually worked their way out to the public free 90 days behind, so that it's not current events anymore. And those never seem to get censored. It's only when it's hot topics that it gets censored. So we put that up on Rumble for free. It's up there for everybody to see, and you can look at it and kind of determine for yourself which of the 100 things we hit that they actually banned us for. But it is coming. So be prepared for it if it's going to alter your life in any manner. When Nicole said, what are you doing different? I'm not doing anything different because we did it all. I've got multiple freezers. We've got ways to run freezers. We've got food production. Like Josh said, we had 300 chickens here at one time. I mean, I've probably 200 right now. Like, we produce so many eggs that I literally throw them against the wall if they're dirty. I mean, the dogs all eat them anyways. When you were talking about taking those chickens and hatching them out, if you've ever had a broody hen sit on a nest of eggs and then she hatches out the first day or two, then she takes off and she doesn't sit on those eggs. Have you guys not ever taken the eggs and popped them to see, throw them again? Those are chickens in there that were just a few days from being viable. So if you have the ability to continue the incubation, you will get those eggs. Like right now, what am I doing? I brought in 20 more chickens because that's all Tractor Supply had Sunday night. I'll bring in another 80 this week. I'll bump us up 100 more birds so that come spring, we've got another 100 eggs online. There is an attack on your ability. At the same time this is happening, I went to a city hall meeting, a town council meeting yesterday with Gorham's Homestead. And those people said, the mayor was there and the city council was there. They are trying to make Dixon, which is one county over from us, they're trying to take and put in all these guidelines for people to have chicken. You're only going to be allowed to have four chickens, and you have to have an acre of property to be allowed to have your 4 chickens. Anything less than an acre cannot have chickens. And no, this is a city.
City.
This is a city, but it will trickle, right? Why did I go there? Because if it's happening there, it'll happen here. Yeah. And they want you to pay $25 and they want to come in and inspect all your shit. They have to bless you. Well, what's code enforcement going to do? Start writing up more bullshit to harass you for? They wanted to know when these people are speaking, what's your address? Why? So you can come out and harass these people? They allotted them 3 minutes to speak. They didn't even listen. They didn't even look. Like, they literally looked like if they could have stepped on you and squashed you like a bug, they would have been more than happy to douse you in gasoline. These people hate you. And that is literally how they acted. 4 people got up and spoke for 3 minutes. 2 of the ladies gave their time to Dawn. They're like, nope, we're not doing that. That's not happening. And then the asshole hit his gavel so much you couldn't even hear half of the conversation with this fucking motherfucker hitting his fucking hammer. And then they're like, okay, we don't have any more business. Do you really think they left? They just ended the fucking conversation until everybody left and then did what they were going to do. Your government hates you. They
Yeah.
literally look at you like cockroaches. And until you get that through your head, nothing's going to change in your life.
The
Yeah.
only way to win that argument on the local level is to embarrass the crap out of them with people who vote for them loudly enough that they have to do something different. That's the only way that
Yeah.
wins.
Yep. Or run against them. Like
Because they don't care what you say in that meeting at all. You're
This
right.
dude this guy has been the mayor for over 20 years.
Yeah, and that's the problem in any of those places. The one place that politics can somewhat work is locally, and it's really the only place that you're on a regular basis affected by the laws. Is, it sucks when there's a federal law about something and blah blah blah, but 99% of the time, even if you're in violation of it, you could just do whatever you want to do, and nobody's going to show up at your doorstep and mess with you. But it's the local laws and things like that, and so if you want to get involved in politics, I don't. But if that's a thing that you want to make a difference in, getting involved in your local county or city council is where you can actually affect change in those things. And then you can actually have a dissenting vote that makes a difference, and force them to do certain things that maybe they don't want to do otherwise. And I know people in North Carolina and Georgia and places like that that are actually doing that. It's not fun. It's like another one of those things, you're going to suffer for it, right? But they are able to make a difference. They're getting on the school boards and things like that. But yeah, that whole thing about the social media platforms and all that, this is why John and Jack and other guys have been saying for a while, you need to get these other platforms built up. You need to get your presence there established before everything falls apart. Because if you're trying to build it once, you're getting in trouble on the platforms, your ability to send people to the other places significantly declines. And I mean, I'm largely controversial. Like, I talk about dog stuff. So, I'm controversial in the dog world, but not in the you're going to get canceled by social media world. But, if you want to speak out about those kinds of things and that's important to you, you better start now getting yourself on these other platforms and building a following there, because you may not be able to do it if you get targeted on the major platforms.
Well, part of why I brought up not just the censorship, but the potential for additional shutdowns this year is I've had a lot of people scared when they're hearing what John just said, and I saw it happen in the comments here.
Yep.
He says shutdowns are coming. I have done my own kind of walk through that, and I don't see that it's out of the realm of possibility. I'm not as confident as he is. But that's how we usually are on these issues, is he's like, this is happening, and I'm like, well, So it doesn't matter, though, if the shutdowns happen or not. What matters is your reaction to it. That's what matters.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I framed the question that way is, what are you doing differently? Is I knew John was going to tell me probably that he wasn't doing anything differently, because he already had his systems figured out before, and he hasn't stopped living the way you should live, where you prepare for the things that are most likely to happen and be ready, but you're not altering your whole future success against one event happening. Because if you do that, you undermine yourself. And if right now you hear this and it frightens you and you're running around like Chicken Little with the sky is falling, you're still not going to navigate this well. So those of you who are like, but I was going to take a trip, plan on taking your trip. If for some reason all travel stops, then you'll deal with that when that happens. But plan on taking your trip, be ready to take your trip. Think about how compliant you want to be if those things come down the pike. Yeah. And what that looks like. Like, I see Self-Reliance Festival happening on October 14th and 15th. John, if there are shutdowns, are you going to keep us from coming to your compound?
We didn't last time. I mean, we did it during the shutdown. My county didn't shut down.
Yeah. I'm going to be there.
I think most people that listen to you took the thing last time or got pushed out and have a different job, right? You're going to see all of this happen again, probably on a much greater scale. And I think that they are looking to push violence so that they can suspend the election and the Constitution. Like, I wholeheartedly believe that is their effort. They are looking for our side, or what we would call our side, to act right in an aggressive manner. Every time somebody does that, they blame it. But you're not going to get that out of people. Like, people are like, well, where's that line in the sand? Well, we have jobs and families. The crazy people showing up to protests, they're not employed. They don't have families. And those are paid actors. Somebody paid those people to show up. I mean, if you look at the Antifa people, look at their mugshots. Those are people that eat their boogers. Like, you guys, like, are we really scared of them? They're holding plastic trash can lids, and that they're able to manipulate the entire, the state of the United States. I mean, look at them. They literally they're LARPing out in the park with a pool noodle and eating their boogers and kissing their sister. I mean, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah. Well, I like the way Jack puts it for the people that are like, oh no, where's the line in the sand? Should we do something? He's like, once the line in the sand is crossed, you won't have a question about it anymore. If you're the one making the decision, you're probably making it prematurely. Once the decision has been made for you, then you react to it. And that's really, kind of coming back around to the whole, you lose everything and rebuild a business out of it. That should be our attitude toward everything in life. Shit happens all the time. And our response shouldn't be, oh no, the sky is falling. It should be, all right, well, what are we going to do about it?
I'm going to order a bunch of coffee this week.
Yep.
Going into the winter time, so I have plenty of coffee to roast.
That's
Literally
right.
Making those decisions right after I get out of my mysterious location here.
And everybody should be making some steps toward, like 3 months is a pretty decent idea. If you can't make adjustments to your life within a 3-month period, when you have everything that you need, you and your animals aren't starving, you can make it through 3 months. If you can't pivot in a 3-month time frame, then you need to work on your ability to adapt and overcome, as we say in the Army all the time. And then, so if you have 3 months, then you just adjust, right? You go, all right, well, this isn't working. What are we going to do? You have a lot less panic in your life when you have 3 months supply of the stuff that you need. And then, incrementally start adding things in now. And, you probably should have been doing this 2-3 years ago, when, guys like John and Nicole and Jack were telling us to do all this stuff way back when. But if you haven't started till now, start now. Get a couple chickens, get a couple of whatever kind of livestock you want. If you don't want livestock, put in a little garden. Start kind of generally taking steps in the direction that you need to go, in ways that your finances allow you to do it without going into debt, and make smart decisions. If you want to start a business, start actually taking realistic steps today to make that happen. I like the episode Jack did right after our interview, which was pick your destiny, select your heart, I think is what he called it. And he basically went into, everything in life is hard. Living in your mom's basement at 30 and playing video games, there's a lot of hard things in that life because you don't have much freedom. But working 16 hours a day for a job that you want to do is also hard. And pick your heart. Which one do you want? Like, do you want the benefits and the freedom that come from doing the things that you choose to do? Or do you want to, let somebody else make that decision for you and then live with whatever the heart is that's created in that environment? And you start making your steps, start taking incremental movements in the direction you want to go. And then whatever happens, we'll figure it out. It's like,
not only that, even if you don't need the stuff, right? Let's say dog food, for instance. It's an investment. I would have made more money on my money buying dog food 2 years ago. I keep it inside. It's climate controlled. The bags of dog food we were buying were 50 pounds and they were $55. They're 47 pounds today and they're $97. I just bought 6 bags of it this weekend, $97 for a bag of dog food. For a bag of dog food that I don't even rely on. But it's the same with nothing's coming back down in prices. Like nothing that you buy is going to come down in price in the next 3 years. So it's only going to go up.
Yep.
No, gas is going to go down right before the election.
Of course it is.
So get ready to stock up. Make sure you have plans, which those aren't going down in price, by the way. So get those now and then be ready to fill them up when the price drops.
And we tell guys all the time, like they're banning gas motors, small gas motors. They're banning them. People are like, nope, they're not. That's only certain municipalities. No, they are banning gas generators. It's happening. They are banning wood stoves, right? Look into it. If you think you need to go get a wood stove, go find one right now. If that's your plan in a year or two to have a wood stove, go get that thing, because there is an attack on that stuff. And people are like, well, why? Well, for the same reason you have these iconic American companies doing absolutely insane shit that has nothing to do with their company, is in fact destroying their sales, because they're all taking money. They're taking money from outside, and it's part of the ESG stuff. It's their green environment bullshit, and they are getting paid, and they are all owned by, really, when you pull the thread, there's one of three companies, which is really about all the same company, that is taking, that's where all their funding's coming from. So they're beholden to them.
Talking about the BlackRock, things like that.
Yep.
Yeah, BlackRock,
State
Vanguard.
Street, BlackRock, Vanguard. Yep.
Yeah. So I was just going to mention that when you were talking about the iconic companies doing what we look at and go, that is the stupidest shit I've ever seen. Like, what were they thinking? Well, they're doing it because companies like BlackRock say, if you don't do this, we're going to dump your stock. And if we dump your stock, the price on it will tank, and then you'll have all these issues in your company. And so then the companies, try and cater to those big investment companies. And whether you agree with that or not, and whether, we can blame them for, in terms of the companies, for the decisions they make or whatever, at the end of the day, that's just what's happening. And
Ford is not an American company. If you're not sure where they stand, look for the word global company, because Ford uses that. When you see all the Budweiser stuff and the company that holds those companies, that's a Brazilian company. They call themselves a global company. The people that are in charge, you are the peasants. You are literally just in their way. And that's what this is all about. Why do you think they're pushing these green cars, all the electric cars? Because they can turn those motherfuckers off. If you're not sure, Tesla, even Elon Musk's company, Tesla, turned off all of the Teslas in Russia as soon as the Ukraine thing popped off. Turned off every one of those fucking cars.
So I'm going to bring up a question that I saw come through on the comments, because the same answer to what we're talking about with shutdowns as to how your life should change, in my opinion, is the same answer to this question, is what advice would you give to a lady who's been through a divorce and is worried about her ex waiting for her to screw up? And I'm going to jump in and say, why does his opinion matter?
I need more words.
Yeah,
That's
I
not
read
really
that
what she's
question.
asking.
It sounds like she's got custody of the children and is worried that she may lose that if she does something stupid.
Well, I can say the background is she left her husband because he has a substance abuse problem, and he is constantly watching her to see her do something wrong. I don't think she could possibly lose custody of her children with his background.
Yeah,
so I think it's more of a he will talk about her, but I don't know. Tori, you can clarify that, but I would say his opinion matters less than the opinion of the fly I see on this window over here, especially in a court system that prioritizes mothers.
You can spend a ton of time not living your life, or you can spend those years living your life.
Yep.
I would assume the question is more like, I want to pull my kid out and do homeschooling. And if you're in that court system, I'm sure there's going to be some grief or hassle with that. I mean, the question she asked is not really what she's asking.
Yeah. If it's about homeschooling, the best thing to do is connect with like the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. They'll walk you through like your state's requirements and make sure you're doing everything by the book. I don't know how all the states look at it, but Florida looks at Excelis that Jack recommends as being enrolled in a private school. So you don't even have to go through the homeschooling. Like in Florida, you have to either have a certified teacher do an evaluation, or you have to do a standardized test each year, one of the two. And but if you're enrolled in Excelis, you're actually enrolled in a private school that just does online schooling. And so you don't even have that headache. So that may play to your benefit there. But in general, if it's about what other people think. So when I said I lost everything when my ex-wife divorced me, I lost all my stuff, right? But the other thing that I lost is everybody who said they were my friend also poof, right? You learn real quick who your actual friends are or not. Nobody came and said, hey, what's your side of the story here? No. It was just cut off, done. We're not talking to you anymore. You must be a bad guy. blah, blah, blah. And
So
so people do that shit. Go ahead, John.
So that's what she said. She said, it's about being more active in my business. There was another one here, though. She said,
Yeah.
um, he badmouths you to your friends. I don't have friends where you can go and badmouth me to. Those aren't my fucking friends. Block them on social media. Remove all access, because this is what's happening. This is what people do. She still looks at his shit, and he still looks at her shit, and they both go back and forth.
Yep.
If you're done, you're done, right? How many years have people spent bickering back and forth, and then they find the true love of their life, and they've wasted literally 3-4 years of their life and done nothing and gone nowhere over that shit? Block your social media so he can't see you. Do not communicate, but and no, you don't remain friends with his mother, because that's the mother-in-law. That is a clear cut. That is over with. I don't have friends. I promise you, I do not have a single friend. You probably couldn't even access and communicate with my friends, much less badmouth me to my friends.
Yeah.
Go build yourself. Stop looking to see if he's looking at you. Build yourself. That's what I would tell a man. That's what I would tell a woman.
Yep. Yeah, I would block everything you can on social media. Anybody who caters to, like, I could see a situation where, you've got a mutual friend and they're trying to be good friends to both people, and you're staying together. And I totally appreciate your position, John. But if you're in that position and that person caters to them talking bad about you, or you talking bad about the other person, then cut them off. Right now, if they're like, hey, I'm your friend, I'm their friend, I'm not talking bad about either one of you or letting you do that, then I respect that person and I might still be their friend. But what I would do is cut everybody off. Anybody who plays into that game at all, they'd be cut off immediately, and I would go build a new life for myself.
The only thing, and if we're talking like the kids go to mother-in-law, or mother-in-law comes pick the kids up to take them to him or whatever, the only fucking thing they should be able to say about you is, holy shit, I've never seen her so happy. Man, she really looks like she's getting in shape. Man, she really has all this product done, right? That they don't give them fucking anything to be negative about, and don't ever say anything negative about him that those kids can hear. They will figure it out. They will know.
That's exactly what I told my now wife, Wendy. When the kids were coming over, I was like, we don't have to say anything about their mom. They'll figure it out. And it's been about 5 years. And within the last couple of months, my kids, especially my oldest ones, but also the youngest ones, because they all talk to each other, right? And have started coming and like, well, I won't go into the situation because we're on a public forum, but stuff started happening, right? And they were like, hey, this stuff is happening. And I was like, my wife is like, wow, it happened just like you said. They will figure it out, right? You don't have to badmouth them. People will ask me, what's she doing now? I'm like, I have no freaking idea. I don't call her. I don't text her. I don't see any of her social media. If she sends me a friend request on something, which has happened occasionally, I do not accept it. I don't accept anybody that I don't know personally. Right. So if I don't look at you and we have mutual friends in common that I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure those people actually know this person, I'll let them in. But I don't put personal stuff on social media anyway. I don't share like, oh, yay. Everything I do on social media is business anyway. And so it's not like pictures of my kids and stuff like that, unless it's them handling a dog. And then I go, look, kids working a dog, and it's still a business thing. So I don't make social media a place where quote unquote friend things happen. And I don't pay any attention to anybody who's not an important part of my life. And if you're giving your time and energy to those people, they're robbing you of your time and you're just throwing it away.
Yes. And Tori, I sent you on Telegram a picture of me doing this. So that anytime you're tempted to react to that guy, you can just bring that picture up on your phone and not do it, because you are better than that. And I don't see a scenario where even him saying you're a bad mom is going to float well in court to somebody whose addictions problem is so bad that they have lost their housing and had to move in with a friend, which I know has happened because I know way too much about the story because we had dinner. But yeah, and I understand why you feel that way, because he moved across the street from her. So she has to actually see him go in and out of a house. But that's not going to last long because he's such a screw up. Those people are eventually going to kick him out too.
Yeah.
So you're just playing a game of chicken right now where you look happy every day and you do your shit and you raise your kids.
Yeah. Yep. And I'd put thick curtains on and keep them closed, especially on the front of the house, so he can't mess with things. If he starts harassing you, call the cops. Be like, hey, he's on my property. If you have to, get a restraining order so he can't be within a certain distance of your house. But even those things, like if you don't need to, don't do them.
Don't do them.
There's fairly easy ways to deal with that stuff. I mean, a restraining order is way too easy to get. Like, I think the court system shouldn't be giving them out as easy as they are. But there are 4 situations like that where you're being harassed by somebody who you just want to leave you alone and you want to live your life.
Yep. Okay, Joel, how's your Train the Trainer affiliate program going? Is that only for USA or is it international?
So we don't necessarily have a Train the Trainer. Jack the other day, so we're working out the details and I'm getting the backside of the website built up. But I think Jack is going to be our first actual affiliate of Canine Academy. And so once that launches and we work the bugs out and make sure he's actually getting his money when the people sign up and all that good stuff, we'll probably open that up. But we actually were just approached by some prison system in Ohio. So I'm not 100% sure if it's a military prison system because they talk about having a lot of veterans, or if it's just their standard prison system. But they want to start training service dogs for veterans and for people getting out of prison, and they want to send trainers here to get that. And if we end up doing that, so we're just starting conversations about that. So I don't know where this will go because sometimes I get contacts like this and then it doesn't go anywhere. But if it actually happens, what I will probably do is we will set up cameras and film that whole thing and put it into Canine Academy as a train the trainer, because what we would be doing is training guys to train service dogs, which if you can train service dogs, you can do most other things with dogs. And then the other thing that we are doing that we're still building out, I have 2 major projects besides that one, because that one's not technically a project yet. We're doing the homestead dog, the perfect homestead dog. I was planning on filming a bunch of that this summer, and if it had been like the last couple summers, it would be done by now. But when I go outside and the dogs like immediately start panting and looking at me like, are we really going to do something out here today? We just can't get much filming done in the weather. So November, December is my time frame to pump out a bunch of those videos. And then the other one, when I get into that, I'll be spending a lot more time sitting here, which I don't per se like doing, but it'll be easy to roll the 2 things together. We're doing a dog training company. I forget exactly the terminology we have on it. I don't know if I could pull it up here real quick. I think it's called, where's my courses? Go away, you. If you have something, another question.
The usual computer experience, like, why is it not pulling up the thing I'm clicking on?
Exactly. And I wasn't expecting that exact question. But basically, it's if you want to start a dog training business, it helps you from it's a basic business course. So I'm not like some super great business guy, but it's basic. How do you select a name? What are good ways to select a name? Make sure you select a good name. Make sure you get your URLs. Make sure you get your website built up. Make sure you do your basic filing with the state if you need to, stuff like that. Get your bank account, like we were talking about earlier. Don't commingle bank accounts, and getting some of the admin stuff set up on the backside, and then actually doing the business. And it'll include Canine Academy. And I'm scrolling down to try and see if I can see it. I actually made it go away because it said it was coming soon. And so it's not showing up. Oh, there it is. Canine Business Coaching Course is what that one's called. So those are the 2 big kind of projects we have on Canine Academy. So between potentially, I don't want to say it's going to happen for sure, but potentially Jack being an affiliate for us to the Canine Business Coaching Course and the perfect homesteading dog are big things coming up. And all of that's available online at canineacademy.us.
So, if you want to go the hard way, you're totally welcome to come to my homestead now and train 2 2-year-old dogs that haven't been really trained at all, and use that for your perfect homestead dog.
We should pick like 1 or 2 things you want to work on, and at your next workshop, come in and I'll just take one or two of them and be like, okay, they're going to be with me from the time I get there till the time I leave, but I'm going to show you what I'm doing as I'm working with them and go through and figure out, show you, here's a problem, here's how we fixed it. And what's amazing is they don't, to get consistent behavior over a long period of time, it takes a period of time of doing the work, but to show the dog what the acceptable thing is to do usually only takes a couple hours for a couple of days. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I got it. And then all you have to do is make sure they don't revert back, right? No. This is what we're doing. Remember? Oh yeah. Okay. And so, yeah, we could totally do something like that at your place.
I think it'd be fun.
Following me around with a camera, filming everything.
Yes. Yeah. So she needs to have a gimbal if you do that.
I actually have, I need to make sure my battery hasn't died on it. I have one for my cell phone. I love them because you can just, once you figure
it follows.
Yeah, it's so smooth. Like we used to run with them with the dogs, chasing the dogs, and it doesn't look like you're running at all. They're just totally fluid and smooth. I love it.
I just finally got one up and working in my life.
They make a big difference if you're moving. It
makes a big difference.
Time.
Yeah. Okay. So, can old dogs learn new tricks?
I would say it depends on how old the dog is. So I have people sometimes contact me with like 7-8-year-old dogs, and they're like, can I train this dog to be a protection dog? Or can I fix this problem that I'm having with this dog? And the question I always say is, okay, yes, but if that dog's been doing that thing for 6 or 7 years, it's probably going to take you 2 or 3 years to really fully change that behavior. And is that how you want the dog to spend the last couple of years of its life? Because right about the time you get it fixed, it's going to die. So is it better to just, if it's a manageable thing, to just manage it until the dog passes and then bring a new dog in and don't make the same mistakes on your next dog?
And don't bring the dog in while the dog's still doing the thing.
Well, people will ask me that too. Should I get a new dog before or after my old dog dies? And my answer is, if your old dog you're like, this is the perfect dog, I've got him doing everything in my house that I want him to do, then bring a puppy in before that dog dies, and that dog will teach the puppy most of those things on its own. It will make training your puppy much easier. If your dog that you currently have is a pain in your ass and you want another dog, but you're waiting for this one to pass, let that dog pass and then bring the new dog in and start fresh. That's generally how I recommend going that route.
Joel, I have a Malamute that pulls. I'm not new to having or training pets, but this guy will not stop pulling. Do you think urban mushing would help? I don't know what that is.
So a Malamute is a sledding dog. Now, sometimes people will say Malamute when they mean Malinois. So I'm assuming you're actually talking about the sledding dog, a Malamute. That's what they were bred to do. So people will often, they look at a dog online and they say, that dog looks cool, I want one. And I go, that's the absolute wrong way to pick a dog. What you need to do when you're picking out a dog is go, what do I want a dog to do? What breeds were created to do that thing? And then pick from those breeds, right? So Malamutes they are pulling dogs. That's what they do. Now you can somewhat break this. You could try a couple different things. We use a prong collar. Now, some people think, oh, you put a prong collar on the dog and the dog won't pull anymore. No. Once a dog creates tension on a prong, they generally don't care that they have a prong on versus a flat collar. So what a prong does is when they start to pull, before your lead goes tight and they're in pull mode, is you pop. And what that does is the prong actually pinches on the neck. And when it pinches, it's like a mother nipping a puppy, right? It's an understood thing in the dog's world. They go, whoa, okay, I didn't like that. And they might have, the first couple of times it happens, they're probably going to be like, what? Where'd that come from? But after a couple of times of any time that lead starts to go tight, boom. And I let the dog decide how hard that correction needs to be. If I give a light little bump and they respond to that light little bump, then great, that's all they need. If I give a light little bump and they're like, I didn't feel nothing, and they keep going, I'm like, all right, what you told me is you need a harder correction, right? So the dog decides what the correction level is and how hard you correct. You could do something with an e-collar and give a shock whenever they pull. They actually make an e-collar. It's kind of hard to find, but if you send me a text at 813-836-9244, I'll try and find it on Amazon and send it to you. It's actually an e-collar that is button activated. It doesn't have a remote, and you clip a lead into it, and when the dog pulls, it will either vibrate or shock, and it's got 3 levels of shock and a vibrate option. So it's designed to shock them if they pull into the collar. So if they create tension, it presses that button and pow, they get shocked. And there's even a P setting, which goes, it vibrates for like a second, then it does a level 1 shock, level 2, level 3 until they stop pulling. So that's an option. And then they do make a couple of various different pulling things. If you teach them to pull, they will just want to pull more. So if you put them in, like, you can do mushing with a dog, but before I started doing that, I would get obedience in, we call it a foos, walking at your side. I would get a good foos on the dog first, and then I would give them the energetic outlet of the pulling. And then as soon as that's over, I clip into the prong, and it's like, we're back to work. I tell my dogs, it's over, back to work time. So when we track, they're pulling because they're out looking for scent and finding it and taking me to it, right? And then we find the person, good seat, good seat. They get praised up. They're all happy. And then I switch over to their prong collar, and I go, it's over, and it's back into obedience time.
Cool. Dawn, I don't understand your question, so if you could reword that, I'd really appreciate it. Jose asks, I'm on the other side. What breed dog is protective and low maintenance? I don't have a bunch of space and lives near you.
So in terms of low maintenance, it really depends on what you mean by that. So first, let's deal with protective versus protection. So most dogs are protective, meaning they will bark and they'll show some kind of aggression if they have identified, this is my place, right? This is our yard, this is our house, wherever it is that they stay, and that person is a stranger and they don't belong here. And most dogs will become protective and they'll bark and they'll show some aggression. That is not protection, because what 99% of those dogs will do if that person attacks you is they'll go, sorry, boss, I tried, and boom, they're out, right? They're like, I gave it my best. I barked at them, but they kept coming, so I'm out of here. And so dealing with stress, which is what an attack from a human is, because a human's a pinnacle predator, dogs understand that, and they'll try and like posture, but then if it doesn't work, they're like, all right, I'm out. And so teaching them to deal with the stress of actually fighting a human being is a whole different thing. But space-wise, I've had people get our Dutch Shepherds that live in apartments. Now, they come home from work and they take the dog for a walk, and they take the dog for a walk in the morning before they leave, and they make sure the dog uses the bathroom. There's a little bit more planning that goes into having a dog in a small space like that, but it can definitely be done. Of the breeds that we work with, the German Shepherds tend to be more toned down than the others. So they're still working dogs. They still have energy, and you still have to do some stuff with them. But a lot of times what you need to do is just be disciplined in your obedience, and the dogs come into that. And like I have 2 Dutch Shepherds that are in here. They've been in here with me all day. They're laying in their place. One's right over there behind me, and one's over there on the bed. And they got up a few times, and I snap my fingers and tell them, go back to your place, and they go back and lay down in their spot. So discipline and consistency is more important. But slightly lower energy with a protection dog, I would recommend a German Shepherd.
Okay, question. Can dogs like John's LGDs be cross-trained for both herding work and security and protection? And is that practical? Thanks, Don, for rewording that.
So some dogs can be cross-trained, but again, you got to look at what was the purpose of the dog in terms of why did they create that breed. So livestock guardian dogs specifically, if they're true, now some people will call Australian Shepherds livestock guardian dogs, right? Because they kind of taught them to generally be with the herd or whatever and not hurt them. And that's fine. And sometimes they will do the job, but that's a herding dog, not a livestock guardian dog, right? A livestock guardian dog is actually a set of breeds. And so LGDs were trained to not bond to humans. I'm sorry, they were bred to not bond to humans. That doesn't mean that they won't, but they have more of a tendency to bond to another animal than they do to human beings. And so what you do when they're young is you put them with the animals, and they identify with those animals, and then they want to stay with those animals, whether you put them with chickens or rabbits or sheep or cows. And then so if you bring your LGD into your house every night, they're not doing the job of a livestock guardian dog, because they're going to bond to the humans. They're going to be like, it sure is comfortable in here. Now, once they've bonded to their animals, you could try and bring them in, and they're like, I don't want to go in. Like, I belong with them. And so if you have a dog that's like that, you could do suspicion exercises and even bite work where you have people. I would treat that dog more like a perimeter security dog, where I have people kind of run up to the fence and like shake the fence and like agitate the dog, and the dog's like, "Roar, roar, roar, roar," and then you're out there praising them. Yeah, don't let them come in here, and build up that intensity where anybody comes near the gate and their first instinct is go hurt that thing because it's not supposed to be here. You could do something like that. Now, if you do that, obviously you need to make sure your gates are secure, your fences are secure, that dog doesn't get out, right? The dog is actually fully contained where it's supposed to be. And so there's responsibility that goes in with that. But one of the reasons we like the Malinois, German Shepherd, Dutch Shepherd breed is because they're probably the most flexible of any of the breeds that we know of. So they sometimes get classified as herders, but they're really shepherd's dogs. And there's a difference. A herder goes out and then herds up a flock and then moves it to some place that you want them to move it to. A shepherd's dog moves with the shepherd. So they're sometimes assisting and herding, but they're doing it with the shepherd, not typically being sent out to do it on their own. So like border collies and Aussie shepherds and things like that, those are true herding dogs. They're bred to go bring those animals to me or go push those animals into this other pasture. And whereas a shepherd's dog is bred to be with the shepherd, which is why they also make great war dogs, because they're with their handler when they're doing those things.
Great. All right. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours. Let's go once around the horn here, guys, and wrap up. We'll start with you, Joel.
Thank you very much. Joel Ryals. I have fortresscanine.com if you're interested in purchasing a German Shepherd, Dutch Shepherd, or Belgian Malinois. We have puppies. We have some puppies available. I have a German Shepherd litter that should be born in about 3 or 4 weeks. That still has a little bit of availability on it. And we have some other litters planned either real late this year or early next year. And then if you already have a dog and you're interested in getting training for that dog, we have k9academy.us. That's the letter K, the number 9 academy.us. We're on almost all the social media platforms. We're over on Noster. We're on, I think, everywhere. I stopped posting on MeWe because apparently you have a limit on how much stuff you can upload on MeWe, and I maxed it out. They're like, you can upgrade. And I'm like, no, thanks. And they won't let me go in and delete it all and just wipe it. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm not posting there anymore, even though I kind of liked MeWe. And I think I stopped doing Float, sadly, because there was no return there. But just about all the other social media platforms we're on. We're at Fortress Canine everywhere but Facebook, because Facebook's dumb. And but we are on Facebook, Fortress Canine Kennels, Fortress Canine Puppies, and Fortress Canine Academy. We do YouTube. I have a live every Thursday at 5 p.m. And reach out to us. You can send me a text at 813-836-9244. But I tell people every week, do not call me. If you call that number, I will not answer it. But if you send me a text, I'll try and get back to you within 24 hours.
All right, John.
Special Operations Equipment on YouTube. I do a live every night at 9 o'clock. We've got over 4,000 videos, like real videos. Instagram, we post a little bit different content on Instagram, and TikTok. We're on Facebook also. SOEtacticalgear.com is the website, and we build, nylon tactical gear, and I think there's some hanging back there. So you can check out what we do there. I've got a Patreon also. It's SOE Tactical Gear. Super easy to find. Jump on 9 o'clock tonight. We talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
Yes, and if you jump on his live and don't comment and there's nothing to talk about on there, then he leaves. So if you do jump on, ask questions, bring topics up.
Yeah, engage.
All right, I'm Nicole Sauce from NicoleSauce.com. And if you're interested in an audio podcast, I put out 4 to 5 episodes a week. You can get them on any podcast player. But I also work with John Willis to do the Self-Reliance Festival twice a year at the SOE compound. Our next one is October 14th and 15th. Get your tickets now while we still got them. That's selfreliancefestival.com. Joel's going to be there. He's going to have his dogs, but that's not what he's talking about.
Ooh, that's right. Should we tell people?
He's going to talk about building your niche business, which if you've been wanting to know more about how to position your business into a tight niche and take advantage of that, you can you would benefit from just buying your ticket just to hear that one presentation. And then there's a whole bunch more people you'll meet in person. You can talk to John in person there as long as you can walk fast and keep up with him. You can talk to Joel Salatin, Jack Spirko will be there, John Pugliano from Investable Wealth will be there, or the Wealth Studying Podcast. I will be there. We've got Toolman Tim coming down. We've got a whole bunch of people. And I believe Amanda even agreed to be on a panel of women preppers.
Woo!
So we're going to have, badass women homesteader prepper types all together on a panel as part of that. So it's going to be a fun time. I've got a guy doing a scything demo. We've got all sorts of fun demos coming up. We're making biochar and all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be amazing, as Letty says. So that's all over at selfreliancefestival.com, guys. We will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.